Hey, this is Holly
and Fred,
from Dead Groove,
and this is
Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 453 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always. And as you heard right there in that intro, Dead Groove is here on the podcast. So we've got a great talk with Holly West and Fred Aching of the band Dead Groove. Lead vocalist and bass player and drummer of this fantastic power trio that has a very unique sound. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about their brand new single, which happens to be a remake of the Jimi Hendrix Experience classic Voodoo Child that features, not only is this a remake, it features Steve Morse, one of the all-time rock and roll guitar legends. Steve Morse of Deep Purple is sitting in with Dead Groove, playing that amazing Jimi Hendrix guitar work, guitar parts, all that great stuff. We're going to talk to Fred and Holly about all this and about a ton more coming up very shortly, but I need to let you know who sponsors this podcast. Sunset Tattoo is a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed, Native American owned, and they have a female artist on staff full time. They accept walk-ins. You can also set up a time to go in there and talk about what work you're looking to have done. They've got tons of photos on their social medias you can check out to see that they specialize in all different kinds of styles. Sunset Tattoo Tulsa on both Instagram and Facebook. I've had multiple tattoos done by Jake at Sunset Tattoo that I'm very happy with. I know many others that have as well. And in fact, there's probably been some members of a band you love that have as well. Jake has tattooed many members of some well-known rock, hard rock, heavy metal bands throughout the years as well. His shop is dedicated in celebrating the world of hard rock and heavy metal, kind of like we do here at Thunder Underground. So it's a good partnership. Very happy to have Sunset Tattoo going strong after all these years. Appreciate their support. Get in there and tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. We've also got DEB Concerts, our longest running sponsor, concert promoter based in the Tulsa area that has brought tons of great acts to the downtown area of Tulsa, such as Megadeth, Lamb of God, Saxon, Last in Line, Buckcherry, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Great White, LA Guns, Steelheart. The list is massive and long, and it's ever growing. DEB Concerts books the Roadhouse DEB concert stage at Rocklahoma every year. That also includes the pre-party, which is included with your 3-day ticket. This year at Rocklahoma, you can check out rocklahoma.com for the full lineup, which features headliners like Slayer, Godsmack, and Papa Roach. But the DEB concert stage specifically will feature Plush, She Hates Me Not, a Van Halen tribute called Jump, 7 Foot Monkey, an Ozzy tribute called Ozzolution, Molly Hatchet, Slaughter. Hey, Mark Slaughter has been on this podcast twice, and the almighty Ugly Kid Joe. One of my favorite vocalists of all time, Whitfield Crane, one of the most underrated bands ever, for their first time at Rocklahoma here on the 20th anniversary. Super excited to be able to see Ugly Kid Joe once again. If you haven't, you're in for a treat. DEB Concerts. Hit him up at debconcerts.com to be kept up to date. And of course, we keep you up to date right here. And speaking of Rocklahoma, the Rocklahoma Bitches are back as a sponsor leading up to Rocklahoma 2026 once again. They've been an institution at Rocklahoma dating back to 2011, 15 plus years now, almost the full 20 years. I've personally been fortunate enough to make it to every Rocklahoma since 2007. I'll be out there once again this year in 2026 along with the Rocklahoma Bitches. Christy and Kendra are very supportive of the community of Rocklahoma. That's what they're out there. They're always out there hosting events at the parties that go on in the campgrounds. They've got tons of merch for Rocklahoma Bitches, t-shirts, koozies, bags, stickers. They have new stuff every single time I see them, and they will give you all this stuff at Rocklahoma for absolutely free. They don't charge for a single piece of their merch. They're always flying around the campgrounds, passing out this stuff to support Rocklahoma and support their love of the festival-going experience. They're very charitable besides just their merch. Christy always bids on the autographed guitars that Rocklahoma auctions off every year for charity, and she usually walks away with one. Rocklahoma Bitches also sponsors the Cancer Sucks benefit that happens in Tulsa every year at the end of November to, of course, raise money for cancer. That happens at the Cain's Ballroom. Rocklahoma Bitches, super excited to have them back, partnered with Thunder Underground, leading up to Rocklahoma once again. As you heard right there, Rocklahoma Bitches are back as a sponsor. They joined me last year for the first time in the months leading up to Rocklahoma in 2025, and they are back now officially for another run over the next few months leading up to Rocklahoma this coming Labor Day weekend. We're going to, delve a little bit deeper into Rocklahoma Bitches this year. That I should probably rephrase that or edit that out, but we'll leave it in there. I know that sounded weird. That was not the intention. But hey, Christy and Kendra both know I love and respect them. So what I meant was dig a little bit deeper into the aura that surrounds Rocklahoma Bitches. And how are we going to do that? Well, you'll just have to wait and see. But here in the next few months leading up to Rocklahoma, more than just last year where it was, hey, Rocklahoma Bitches are sponsoring Thunder Underground, we're working hand in hand, but more to come on that end. You can probably figure out what I'm talking about, but all that announcements will come when it happens. Very happy to have them back. But in the meantime, what we've got is a great conversation here with Holly and Fred of the band Dead Groove. Both of these individuals are high-level musicians. This band is a fantastic power trio. Holly is the vocalist and bassist. Holly is also the bass player for an all-female Led Zeppelin tribute band called Zepparella. That name is fantastic. I'm sure she's heard that many times throughout the years, but I absolutely love that name. And yeah, she's in this nationally touring Led Zeppelin cover band, so just hearing that, whether you know anything about this woman, you know that she's got talent. If you're stepping into the role held by John Paul Jones, you've got to have a basis of extreme musical knowledge. Side note about Zeppelin, earlier this year, not too deep into the year, we're here at the end of March, but at the beginning of the year in January, Led Zeppelin released the Becoming Zeppelin documentary. This was released into theaters, but it is now on, I believe it's Netflix. I saw it recently on a streaming service. I think it's Netflix. I need to watch it again. But I went and saw it in a theater. Jason, my old co-host, went with me, and we recorded a review, basically, of the Zeppelin documentary. But I'm just letting you know, if you want to check that one out, episode a couple months ago about Becoming Zeppelin. It's a fantastic documentary. Is exactly what the title says. It's not an all-encompassing documentary that focuses on the entire career of Led Zeppelin. It basically focuses on the four individuals of Led Zeppelin and how they basically came together to form a band and become Led Zeppelin. And it leads up to basically, the recording of that first album. It's a fantastic documentary that most any music fan would love. Most people that love rock music love Led Zeppelin. I know there are people out there that don't, but we're not going to discuss negative people. We don't want to bring them into our world. So if you don't like Led Zeppelin, I'm just going to leave it at no comment. But yeah, Holly West performs Led Zeppelin songs on the regular as she does Dead Groove songs. She also has solo music out there as well. Her counterpart here, Fred, that makes up the other half of this rhythm section, is also a very accomplished drummer. A very fantastic drummer that has many different styles he can pull from. And he needs to do that because he performs different styles. Besides what he's doing with Dead Groove, he's known in the metal world because he is a part of Kings of Thrash. He is the drummer for the band Kings of Thrash, which, if you're not familiar with it, is basically a celebration of Megadeth. It was put together by David Ellefson, the original bass player and founding member of Megadeth, as well as Jeff Young. Jeff was the guitarist of Megadeth on So Far, So Good, So What, right before the addition of Marty Friedman. And they play those songs from all the early stuff, that you would expect, like Peace Sells and My Darkest Hour. Of course, the classics from Rust in Peace, Countdown to Extinction. We even get some Euthanasia in there, as we talk about here upcoming in here in just a bit in this interview. Fred has been a part of this, playing the drum parts made famous by Gar Samuelson and Nick Menza. Fred also is the drummer for Powerflow. Powerflow, if you're not familiar with, is a band that features members of Cypress Hill, Biohazard, X Fear Factory. Just saying that, it sounds exactly like you would expect. Featuring a member of Biohazard, a key member of Biohazard and Billy, and a key member of Cypress Hill and Sindog. And this band sounds exactly like you would expect, with someone from Cypress Hill and someone from Biohazard colliding into a musical project. They've got a couple of albums out that are great, and I'm a huge fan of this band and those albums. And Billy from Biohazard and Powerflow was on this podcast not that long ago, actually. I believe it was October of 2025, maybe September. That was a really fun one. Their album that came out last year called Divided We Fall is a fantastic, fantastic hardcore metal album. These guys have not let up throughout the years, and in true Biohazard fashion, this new album, harkens back to the early days of Biohazard with, the lyrical content. We all know that in the world climate today, the United States climate, it's really fucking easy, I would think, for Biohazard to write lyrics. So do with that what you will, but if you know Biohazard, you know what the hell I'm talking about. So check out Divided We Fall, but check out Powerflow, more importantly, for Fred here. But yeah, getting back to Dead Groove, which is the main subject at hand. This band's sound is hard to describe, which is great. That's what you want. Power trio that easily could pull in stuff from Jimi Hendrix and Motorhead, and it makes sense, right? They have elements in this music of a stonery doom kind of sound. They have elements of funk and jazz. They have elements of progressive rock. They have elements of funk. They have elements of just straight up rock and roll. And it's just cool to, I've talked about this a lot throughout the 11 years in the history of this podcast, when bands combine elements and do it with ease. Because, every once in a while you hear something from an artist where they're trying something else and it sounds forced, or you hear a new band where they're just like trying to combine styles, to be an innovator or the first to do something. But when people do it naturally and combine styles and it just sounds effortlessly, that's what Dead Groove does. Their debut album is fantastic. Their Rubicon EP from last year is fantastic, and you can now get those things in a combined package, one full compact disc that includes all the songs from the first album, the EP, and this version of Voodoo Child that we're about to talk about. So yeah, let me quit rambling about this stuff and let's just hear what Holly and Fred have to say. Here is Holly West and Fred Aching of Dead Groove. You guys got the Voodoo Child single out now. Whose idea was it to tackle, one of the most recognizable guitar riffs of all time when we got a rhythm section here?
Yeah, right? Good.
We didn't really think of doing a Voodoo Child first. We had maybe we might do Purple Haze, but then we ended up landing on Voodoo Child. There's not too many covers out there. There's one by Stevie Ray Vaughan. And then we thought, it might be a good opportunity to come up with something not as the original, but having a little twist.
Where did the connection with Steve Morse coming into this? One of you guys know him, or you have a connection through friends?
Connection definitely through Cleopatra Records. He works with Cleo. He does a bunch of songs and records through the time, and we were gonna go on a tour with Glenn Hughes, so we had all this Deep Purple related theme that we were using for this year, and then this idea came about to do Voodoo Child, and then Cleopatra recommended Steve Morse, and we were like, perfect, we love Steve Morse.
Right. How do you approach something like a song of this magnitude? Do you get someone like Steve Morse to do it? I mean, what's the thought process when you're going in to record something like this?
I definitely want to keep the guitars in the the center of the stage. So Fred and I tried to be as true as we could to the record on our parts, and just let the two guitar players kind of have their free reign to do whatever they want. I think it worked out pretty good.
Well, yeah, that was kind of one of my questions. Did you guys kind of study what Mitch and Noel did on that original recording? It wasn't more like a jam, kind of in the spirit of what they did, where they kind of jammed it out, I assume, in that first recording.
Some of them. Some of the recordings are like a jam, and some of them are pretty straightforward. I kept my bass parts pretty straightforward because I thought there's a lot of stuff going on. And not only that, but as you can tell, we didn't all record in the same spot. So I personally didn't know what the guitar players were going to do. So to jam with them before they jam is kind of hard. Right. And I also didn't want to go back and re-record what I'd already recorded. So I just kind of kept, in my mind, I was just like, I'll just play the groove all the way through. I've got the vocals, doing what the vocals do. So he had the drum parts pretty much the same as what they were.
I mean, we played to Jimmy's track, to the original song, and back in the day they used no click, so the tempo kind of graduates here and there. But we used the original track with that tempo, so I tracked the drums on top of it, so we respect that vibe. And then she put her bass, and we played to Jimmy's guitar. We tracked everything. It was a reaction to Jimmy's, and similar to what the original members were doing. And then when we sent that to Steve, we're like, all right, okay, we're playing to Jimmy, so let's see what you can come up with,
Right. So when you got the track back from Steve, you're hearing it for the first time, kind of like a fan would. Like, what was your reaction to hearing, his guitar work over your guys' track?
So smooth.
It sounded so good.
Yeah, so it was just like, I had no notes. It was like, this is incredible. Thank you. It was like, are you sure it's all good? It's perfect.
Yeah.
But at first he was like, this might be a little too much to try to play Hendrix. He was like, I don't know how you want to approach this, because it's such a classic riff intro. And then he ended up coming up with this mix of the riff with kind of like a reggae kind of vibe. He did a great job. Then he was like, okay, I'll do it. And then he came out with that,
Is this something you guys are going to incorporate into your live set? Is this something Caesar will be doing, or is this more of a studio project kind of thing?
Yeah, we'll definitely incorporate it. We don't know when, but at some point we will. Right now, we still love playing Ace of Spades as our chosen cover. And we have a pretty big Lemmy kind of show coming up, so we'll keep that for this month at least. But at some point we will incorporate it into a new set.
I will say, side note, whenever I was young, I always wondered why sometimes it was spelled with an E. I don't know why I'm admitting this, but I never just took the effort to look into it. So your guys' description and the press release for the song filled me in on that info.
Yeah. It's like, to do a cover of something really helps your listeners get to know your music even better, to be honest. I mean, they're listening to like your version of the cover, so they can kind of grasp a little bit more of like what you're trying to do, I think. So
plus this is bringing back music that is from 60 years ago to the new generations and new fans that are out there.
Well, you mentioned Ace of Spades, and when you approach that, I mean, obviously you guys got the power trio vibe. You're a bassist and a singer, but obviously your voice is wildly different. Did you just, when you approach something like that, well, I mean, your voice is different than Jimmy's as well. Like, definitely. Do you just say, I'm just doing this as Holly would do it? Or do you, how does your mindset get to that?
Yeah, that's a really good thing to bring up, because I'm constantly trying to battle that when I'm doing it live, because I want to bring the energy there. If you don't bring the Motorhead energy, it kind of sounds a little floppy, to be honest. So I just, I think it was my more grittier performance, to be honest, behind in the booth. It had a lot more like compression in my voice to get to that level where, Lemmy has his, I guess, balls to the wall. So it's definitely a little stretch for me, but it helps me as an artist to kind of expand and see where I can push myself.
When you're doing it live, do you have to place it in a specific spot in the set since you're, like you said, singing a little bit different, or does it not affect you that way?
I think for the set, we kind of do it towards the end just because it's a cover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I mean, if it were to be a bunch of Lemmy songs, then yeah, it might be towards the beginning. I don't know. I've never tried to do a set of Lemmy songs.
So I saw you mentioned a minute ago this Motorhead thing. I saw you guys were playing with a band that's doing a Hawkwind set. Is that what?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So this will be Alan Davey from Hawkwind, right?
So he played with Hawkwind. He also played with Pink Fairies. He's one original member that would want to be playing those two bands.
I think Alan took over Lemmy's spot in Hawkwind, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And yes, it was Pink Fairies and Hawkestrell doing Hawkwind.
And Pink Fairies used to be like Lemmy's favorite band.
Yeah.
Also, kind of got him into what Motorhead is. He mixed what Hawkwind was with the electric, noise, space rock vibe that Pink Fairies has. So it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be really fun.
We're gonna be opening for that show. Also, Danny B. Harvey. He used to play with Lemmy. He used to have Headcat. It was the guy from Stray Cat, Danny B. Harvey, Lemmy. So Danny's gonna bring that back. He has a band in there, so he's gonna be playing Headcat stuff. And the Oxys from Austin. It's a punk band. It has a Dead Boys bass player in it. So it's a good lineup, It's going to be a good celebration of all these great bands.
Yeah.
Is it kind of centered around like a Lemmy theme, obviously, because of at least three of the bands are kind of,
Yeah, it's going to be a DJ playing just all Lemmy,
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talking about your guys' own music instead of just covers, you had the Rubicon EP last year, and you've got this cover single out now. Can we expect more new original music this year as well?
Yes.
Yeah. You can expect some covers and some originals this year. Since we're with Cleopatra, they do a lot of compilation records, and so Fred's already been on a bunch of them. So this will coming soon will be like my debut in some of these records. So that will come, and then we do have 2 new Dead Groove songs we're trying to polish up and get recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, we had all these things planned until the Glenn Hughes tour came, and we were like, okay, we need to change directions now. We need to rehearse.
Yeah.
So then that fell through, and they were like, all right, what's after that? And then we had Voodoo Child, we had the CD Rubicon Deluxe Edition that we just released with all our songs. Rubicon, the self-title, and Voodoo Child included.
Oh, okay.
That's on a CD.
So that came out on CD because we only put one. There was one pressing of our first record, and it was only like 200 copies. So we started doing vinyl. But vinyl started picking up in the last 2 years, 3 years. So we only released vinyl copies. So now everyone is waiting for CD.
I could be completely wrong on this, but to my ears, when I listen to Rubicon, you still hear the heaviness of the guitar, but it feels like it's a little bit less in the front and it's more kind of focused on you two. Is that an accurate description of the way you guys approach those 3 songs, or?
It's an accurate description of what came out of it for sure. Because we did record with a new person. We didn't actually go to Peru this time to record everything.
Oh, okay.
So we have a different engineer. Same mastering person, but different engineer. So that makes a big difference. But also Rubicon, I don't know if you know the story of, Rubicon or, Caesar and Rubicon, but basically this is our, point of no return. So we wanted to have a more polished version of Dead Groove. So that's kind of what you hear. So it was definitely talked about that we want like a more polished version of our music. We wanted to listen to our first record and kind of take note on what we could change and what could be better, and then we brought it into this new record.
Very first time I listened to the first record, I felt like there were moments where I was hearing like a stonery kind of doomy influence in your voice. Definitely. And maybe that's just mixed with the guitar. Is that any kind of influence you have at all?
Absolutely, yeah. We definitely had a lot of doom and stoner rock influence on the first record.
Okay. Well, you've mentioned Glenn Hughes a couple times, and from one Deep Purple legend to another. I mean, he's one of my favorite singers ever. I think he's like a Mount Rushmore top 4 singer of all time. Like, what's this mean to you besides just obviously being able to get out there and get your music in front of his fans, but from your own fandom standpoint, like to be able to go out there with a legend like this?
We were ready. You know, we were ready. We were prepared for this big challenge, and we knew it was going to be great. But, you know, things like this happen. You know, he's also, you know, if he didn't stop, he would lose his voice forever. So it was like either he stops for good, you know. So, yeah, we were ready. So now we're booking these shows, and we're just going to go and do our job, try to nail it. And hopefully when he's back, we can get to do we get to do the tour, you know.
We'll see.
What happened with Glenn?
Well, when you guys first started playing together, a question for both of you: what does the other one kind of provide in the rhythm section for you that sets it off from any of your other projects?
Yeah, I think every artist individually is different, obviously. So the good thing about with playing, like me personally playing with Fred, is the ideas that I have to build up songs aren't necessarily coming from the bass all the way. You know, there's a lot of build up with drums too. So being able to kind of dissect songs and put them together the way that we have is very unique, and it's nice to be able to work with somebody that understands where we're, you know, the path that we all want to walk on. I don't speak Spanish, and Caesar doesn't speak English, so Fred is the glue that kind of makes everything work together. So I think that our relationship is definitely a lot more musical than my relationship with Caesar, because I can't really communicate with him that well. But when we go down and record, you know, we're in the booth together, or, you know, sometimes in the booth together, sometimes we're just in the recording session together, and he has to interpret a lot. But being able to work with someone that understands me is good. And Fred definitely puts everything together into perspective and keeps the train moving, for sure.
From my side, for sure, with Dead Groove is awesome. It's fun all the way from writing the riffs with Caesar, and then we create the drums together also. I send him my drums, and he kind of already have an idea, and we kind of go back and forth, you know, like, I like this part, you should go simpler in here. I'm like, sure, you know. And then we get to the rhythm and the drums, and then once that's done, he puts the whole structure of like the blueprint of the song, right? And we're like, okay, this is the same to Holly and see what she can do with this, you know. And then she started coming out with the verses. Like, bass comes at the very end, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Very trippy.
Yeah, because I feel like it. So I have to do bass and vocals. So I feel like vocals, or at least the vocal melodies, are high priority for me. Bass is still a priority for me, but I can also still kind of get away with doing mainly what the guitar does, and it still sounds good, you know.
As long as you get to glue the drums and the guitar, you already did a great job as a bass player, you know.
Yeah.
On top of that, you can come up with your own part, which is even better.
Yeah.
You know?
But I feel like with vocal melodies, it's very important to keep those at the high level, you know, and you can kind of do what you need to do on the bass, because that's what people remember. A lot of people don't remember bass lines or anything like that, you know, unless they're really listening, or the songs have been around for a long time and it's like an epic bass line, you know.
Unless it's a P-Cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, or Ramble
or if it's
On.
Les Claypool or something.
Yeah, but like for our music, I feel like the vocal melodies are the most important thing that I write. I definitely want to branch out to more you know, clever bass parts and stuff like that. But the thing is, like, there's always time for that, you know. Time for us to grow.
I like that you don't get caught up into that. You are really focusing on how's the song looking.
Yeah,
you know,
the song
big
as a whole.
And that's very important for drums too. I always back off of doing things. I never have a double pedal, for example, when I play with that group, because I don't want to add things, you know.
Yeah.
If I have a pedal, I know it's there,
Yeah.
you know, and I gotta start adding things, and then it turns into a metal band.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very thin line.
It's a thin line. You gotta keep.
And coming back to your question, definitely totally different, because when I work with other bands, you know, it's usually about the drums, you know. The drums are great, sounds incredible, the tempo's great. Get out of here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to deal with anything else. But here it's like, okay, cool, drums are cool, guitars now, bass. Let's focus on the vocals, and now we start working together on how at first we kind of came like attacking her, like, all right, let me see what you got, and she was like, what? This is me, you know what I mean? And we were like, all right, can you change this and that, you know? And we kind of had to come to, you know, and she doesn't speak Spanish. Cesar has to speak English, and I was like in the middle. I was like, fuck, she doesn't like this part. He doesn't like this part. Now we gotta compromise, you know? So there's a lot of little stories on all the songs.
Yeah.
It's funny.
But the record sounds great. So
Good work.
Yeah. When you're writing lyrics, do you wait until you have the music? You don't ever come up with melodies or choruses in your head beforehand?
Not really, because the chorus will change as soon as the key changes,
right.
You know. So I've written several albums in my my time of being a musician, and it can be different with this. Like, for instance, my first record, I wrote all of, like, the majority of the lyrics a few weeks before I even started on the music. With this music, with Dead Groove, I wait until they have a blueprint, and then I start going with melodies and kind of what I feel the song could be about, and then I start shaping my lyrics that way. Like, for instance, the Book of the Dead, that's about the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It's about something that almost nobody would even like try to write a song about. And that came about because we had the song, and I was sitting down to write the lyrics, and I asked him what he wants the song to be about. And at the time we were watching a lot of Ancient Aliens. He's like, write about the Book of the Dead. And I'm like, okay. So I look up, you know, Wikipedia or, you know, other websites where I can actually look up about the Book of the Dead and make sure I get all the things right. And then I think he was teaching like a drum lesson, like a 30-minute drum lesson. He came out and I had all the lyrics done, you know. So it's like, it just depends on what happens, you know, how it goes. I'm working on one right now that I can't get past the bridge because I don't know if it's the bridge or if it's a second part. So I have to sit down with him and be like, okay, what is this here? Because I'm getting lost. You know, sometimes that happens too. So, but a lot of times I just kind of sit down with the music and see how it moves me and what I come up with. Because I want it to be authentic. And I don't want to sit on it for a long time, because I've done that so many times with old music and I've just completely ruined it because I thought this idea was better. You know, I feel like if it's going to be authentic, then just do it once. And if it's shit, it's shit, you know, go to the next thing.
It has to be that organic reaction. If you start overthinking that, then it's not organic.
You just ruin it, yeah.
Well, Fred, on your end, you mentioned holding back a bit so, you know, the song doesn't turn into a metal song. Like, how do you get that in your mind? Like, when you go between playing a Megadeth song and then playing a Dead Groove song, like, how do you, is it just natural for you, or do you got to like really think about it? Like when you first sat down?
It's definitely different, you know. There's a lot of groove into this band. So after I got to shake off all the metal, you know, all that straight fucking beat, you know. So it has to turn into just like a laid back and just play it. And of course, just no double pedal makes it for me, you know, just making it more like classic, rudimental instead of double pedal, you know,
fast.
Yeah.
Just play fast.
Well, speaking of playing,
and I'm also singing with her, so it's more like I also have to sing well. So drumming just turns into somebody else's drumming. Yeah.
Is this the first band you've sung in, or have you done that in the past?
Yeah, I think the first band. I mean, I did gain vocals, you know, when I used to play with Billy, you know, that's hardcore. Doesn't really matter. You just gotta
yell it,
you know. But then yelling my way through, I kind of go to like, okay, harmonies, this and that. So I'm learning every day.
Yeah.
Getting there. Because Cesar, he's an amazing singer, but he's in the he's working on his paperwork, so hopefully he'll be here soon and he'll be singing with us, because I'm doing his job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever he's singing with you, you're gonna step back in the live setting, Les? Or
Actually, when we played we played 2 shows in Peru, and we were so prepared that he had to back up. He was like, "Okay, I think you got this, and I'm just gonna focus on playing guitar because I haven't played with you guys forever."
Yeah, we play all the time because we're up here, we're keeping things going. Caesar doesn't play this stuff at all, so it's like when he steps in, he has to really remember things, so it takes a minute. But yeah, I mean, singing and playing an instrument is hard. I don't care what you're fucking playing. It's just, you're doing 2 things at the same time, and it's hard. So it's a learning curve that you really have to take on.
Yeah. I think the best lesson was just to start our own band, because you go through so much playing with everyone and you don't realize it. You don't appreciate things, and you don't realize how things really take a lot of work to get to. And then when you have your band, you realize that, okay, you got to work from the ground up.
I'm a massive Megadeth fan. So I wanted to ask you, when you first, I assume, some of those songs were already in your repertoire, but was there any specific songs by Nick or Gar that were like tough to tackle at first?
To be honest, when I was a kid, I used to be into Megadeth a lot, but it was only from Rust in Peace to maybe towards the end game. That was like the era that I was so into Megadeth, right? I was a kid, metalhead. But then when I got the gig, I had to learn all these songs. I had no idea about Killing Is My Business. I mean, I knew mechanics, but I had no idea about the rest of the songs. I have no idea So Far So Good, So What existed. I had to learn all the stuff so I can play with these guys. And it was definitely a challenge. The hardest one, I think, was Gar. Nick Menza was already, used to all these drum parts that he's done. Rust in Peace is great. Chuck Biller from So Far So Good was also a great drummer. But Gar was a jazz drummer. So it was that kind of, recipe of greatness on a metal band like Black Sabbath. Metal guys, but the drummer is a jazz guy, and so it creates that groove, that swing inside the thrash, which is trippy. So Gar is one of the best drummers that I ever had to learn stuff from, because you never know what he's gonna do. It's all different, Yeah. And he was high on heroin, so that's insane.
I know. Yeah.
Incredible.
Well, I saw on the set list for the Japan shows that Reckoning Day was on the set list. Like, I assume, I mean, I'm not a drummer, but is that as fun to play as it sounds like it would be fun to play?
It's a really weird song, to be honest. It's like a Led Zeppelin, Richie Blackmore vibe into metal. It's more like a rock metal, because it's not as metal, right? That record, Euthanasia, is more like, people say it's pop, The metal guys say, oh, it's a pop record. But it's the most commercial stuff they have. That's why they broke everywhere with that record. But Reckoning Day, yes. We play a lot of songs from that record. Okay. But yeah, it's fun. Good reaction with Reckoning Day.
Very cool. Well, back to you guys. And I mean, you've mentioned you've got a couple shows coming and some new songs this year. What else can we look for throughout 2026 from Dead Groove? Anything else?
The show in March. We're going to confirm a show in Apple Valley, like North LA. That's going to be in July. We have a headlining show in Santa Ana Stages. That's going to be in September. So we're building up at least to have one show a month, so we can focus on advertising the show, packing it up, move on to the next one. And definitely the new songs that we're going to start working. We have 2 already that are great. It just needs a little finished touches in there, here and there, and we hit studio. So hopefully in the next couple months we'll have a couple new songs, or have the full record so we can plan it towards the end of the year or something. It has to be attached to something, maybe a tour or
yeah.
And then in LA, we're going to be playing in downtown LA with the band Castle from California in October. So it's more like stoner, doom, kind of like we're getting to our alley. It's good.
Well, I'm absolutely loving your guys' music, and I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
There you go. Holly, West, Fred, Aching, Dead Groove. Check these guys out. Fantastic power trio. Fantastic music. A huge thank you to Jody Best for her unwavering support of this podcast throughout the years. And of course, a massive thank you to Fred and Holly for taking some time out of their day to hit me up on Zoom to talk about their music, their covers of Hendrix and Motorhead, and all kinds of other great stuff. I did want to point out, you can kind of tell in that question that it had not slipped my mind. I guess I just hadn't seen that the Glenn Hughes tour that he was doing this April got canceled. I brought the question up and they still gave a great answer. So let's hope that when Glenn Hughes is able to get back out there and tour, which I hope is sooner than later, because, you know, the man's getting older. We don't have decades worth of time to see Glenn Hughes live. You know, Glenn Hughes, on a side note, I mentioned it quickly there when I asked the question, but I consider Glenn Hughes a Mount Rushmore rock vocalist. Like, I consider him one of the top 4 singers of all time. I've been fortunate that when all is said and done, and anyone says, what's the highlight Thunder Underground podcast in your career doing this, whether it's right now or 20 years from now, undoubtedly, one of the top 2 or 3 things I'm going to say is I've spoken to Glenn Hughes for probably about 2 hours between the 3 episodes that he's been on. And to me, you know, that's just an opportunity, experience that I would never have gotten if I wasn't doing this podcast. So I'm forever grateful in that. But I think this guy is so phenomenal, and somehow he still flies under the radar to the average rock fan. This guy has been doing this for 60 years, you know, going back to the amazing music he made with Deep Purple, with him and David Coverdale were in the band. Before that with Trapeze, you know, in the episodes that he's been on with me, he talks about Trapeze and Deep Purple. He's done so much great music throughout the years. You know, he was in Black Sabbath for one album, and then he did a couple other albums with Tony Iommi that are fantastic. This Black Country Communion albums that he's done over the past 15 years with Joe Bonamassa are all stellar as well. This guy's a phenom. So I just got off on a wild tangent because I love Glenn Hughes. And I hope that, you know, he gets this tour rescheduled and brings Dead Groove back out, because I believe that Glenn Hughes fans will really appreciate what Dead Groove does live. It's a great match. They also had Gilby Clarke on a good chunk of those dates, which would have been awesome to see. He's another guy I've always been a huge fan of and thought he flew under the radar. I've never had the opportunity to have him on the podcast. I've always wanted to. I love, you know, Guns N' Roses has been my favorite band since I was a kid. So there's obviously that major connection, but I love this man's solo work. His first solo album, Pawn Shop Guitars, I think is in the top 3 of, you know, the world of Guns N' Roses has ass loads of albums out there in the side projects whenever you're looking at the family tree of the guys like Duff and Slash, Matt Sorum, Gilby Clarke, Izzy Stradlin, everybody that's been in the band and released music outside of GNR. But I think Gilby's first album, Pawn Shop Guitars, is probably in the top 3 of those albums. But anyway, another wild tangent. Let's bring it back to Dead Groove and say thank you once again. You need to check these guys out. Follow them on the socials. You know, tell them you heard about them here if this is where you heard about them. If you came here because you're a fan of them, I really appreciate you showing up here. Like I said, Glenn Hughes has been on here multiple times. We've also had on some other legends like Gene Simmons of Kiss. Another all-time experience on this podcast. Bruce Kulick, formerly of Kiss and Grand Funk Railroad, was on here as well. Dean Castronovo of Journey. I mentioned David Ellefson working in Kings of Thrash with Fred. Ellefson has been on this podcast twice. You know, related to Megadeth. James Lomenzo, the current bassist. He was also the bassist for John Fogerty, for White Lion, for Black Label Society for a while, for Pride and Glory with Zakk Wylde. One of my favorite bassists. He was on here once and that was great. Dizzy Reed of Guns N' Roses has been on a couple times. John Corabi a couple times. John Bush of Anthrax and Armored Saint. Dee Snider, the now former vocalist of Twisted Sister. I mean, he'll be always in favor of the vocalist of Twisted Sister, but in the live realm, it was announced recently that Sebastian Bach is taking over. I think it'll work out. I think that's something that makes sense. But yeah, also members of Tesla, LA Guns, Motley Crue, Whitesnake, Three Doors Down, Breaking Benjamin, Hellstorm, Shinedown, Prong, White Zombie, Biohazard, Helmet, Typo Negative, Slaughter. John Waite has been on this podcast. That's pretty wild to say. Vanilla Ice is another crazy one. Crazy to say. But yeah, tons of artists throughout the years that span all genres of rock. More coming up soon. So if you're listening right now, whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, YouTube, hit like, follow, subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Episodes coming up very soon. Joe Defiant, the guitarist for the band Defiant, will be here. And speaking of, like I just said, John Waite and Vanilla Ice, ones that are a little outside the box. After that, I'm going to have on two guys from the band Generation Radio. Generation Radio in itself isn't entirely out of the box. It's AOR, soft rockish kind of music. But the members that are on here are known for things that are decidedly not hard rock. Chicago. An all-time great band. Most people, like a Chicago song here or there if you don't listen to them heavily. But Jason Scheff is joining this podcast very soon, along with Jay DeMarcus of Rascal Flatts. Those two guys are on Generation Radio, and we're going to talk about all that, how they came together, how they've entered the world of rock and roll, and all that great stuff. But yeah, follow on all the socials, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Threads. All those have daily content that are separate from these podcast episodes. You'll see clips of this episode out, but you'll also see daily information, whether it be news, anniversaries, or all kinds of great funny clips. So give me a follow on all the socials so you don't miss that stuff. You can listen to everything directly at thethunderunderground.com. Anytime you see something posted, if you just like, follow, or if you just like or share or comment, that is a huge, easy way to help this podcast for free. If you like to spend money, I've got t-shirts, shot glasses, koozies, all kinds of merch. I'm going to quit rambling. This was a fun one. Once again, a massive thank you to Sunset Tattoo, DEB Concerts, Rocklahoma Bitches, Best Bet Promotions, and Dead Groove. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.